Okay. On the evening of November 2nd, 2012, I was one of a group of members of the Lake Chapala Democrats Abroad chapter who sat at the welcoming table of the presidential election party at the Club Exotica right here in the plaza in Ajijic. The room was filled with tables spread out to accommodate about 350 people. It was highly decorated in a truly celebratory manner. Red, white, and blue crepe paper streamers crisscrossed the entire room. On the tables were placed stars, confetti, champagne glasses, plates, eating utensils, and large dishes of steaming pots of corn on the cob, plates of coleslaw, potato salad, pickles, and slices of apple pie a la mode. It felt like a real 4th of July celebration. Around the room stood members of Democrats Abroad, all ready to help in any way they could. Stationed on the walls were a number of television sets, all set to CNN cable news network station. Distending from the ceiling was a net filled with over 1,000 red, white, and blue balloons in anticipation of being broken open at the announcement of the winning candidate. We even had some fireworks and cohetes ready to be fired. Those of us sitting at the welcoming table were in a real celebratory mood. We greeted each person entering the room with a warm smile, collected the required 50 pesos entry fee, and offered them a seat to watch the highly anticipated event, the election of the Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton over the Republican candidate Donald Trump. I am sure there is no one in this room or no one watching on TV today who doesn't remember where they were the night of this highly anticipated event. Eyes from all over the world were glued to TV cameras to witness what we were sure was to be the highly anticipated event, the election of the first female president of the United States, a very qualified woman, formerly First Lady of the United States, First Lady of Arkansas, First Lady of the United States, Senator from New York State, and former Secretary of State. For those of you who were in that room long 4 years ago, how did you react as the evening progressed? Or wherever you were that night, and I'm sure you can remember. How did you feel when you realized that Hillary Clinton was indeed not to go on to the White House, but that Donald Trump, an egotistical, loudmouth television celebrity, was going to rule the land for the next 4 years? Fast forward to yesterday, November 7th, at 11 o'clock Central Standard Time, 2020. Where were you? What were you doing? What were you thinking? How were you feeling? Like so many of us, I was tired, but also filled with anticipation and very, very nervous. I hadn't slept well the night before, having had a terrible nightmare that scared the pants off of me, and I was so tired. Tired of the long 4 years of pain and suffering, tired of having to bite my tongue every time the name of the president was spoken, tired of feeling I had to close my eyes each time he appeared on TV or had to listen to his voice, tired of worrying about the world, about the nation, about the climate, about the pandemic and the thousands of people who had lost their lives or were struggling with the disease, about all those who were losing jobs and income, about the separated families who were languishing in government-run camps on the Mexican border or in towns and villages in Mexico, about my own family members who were dealing with remote schooling, the interruption of their daily routines, and the great fear that their lives would never return to what they had considered normal. And about myself, I was tired, tired, tired. And then things started to lighten. I emerged from a doctor's appointment to hear that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris had won the vote and were the president and vice president-elect to be sworn on January 20th, 2021. I had worked long and hard in the past number of months, making calls to members of Democrats all around the world, reminding them to request their ballots and cast them in a timely manner. I worked face-to-face with voters from the Lake Chapala region, both Democrats and Republicans, to help them get those ballots up to the United States so that they could be counted along with all the expats living abroad and the military members stationed around the world. I had originally come to Mexico to live in 2003, and I formed a chapter of Democrats Abroad in Puerto Vallarta in 2007. Since then, I have been an active member of the organizations, serving in numerous leadership roles, and started chapters in many different locales in Mexico. We now have chapters in 8 different cities and regions. I've traveled Mexico and the world, attending global meetings, meeting people who have shared my interest in the American political situation, and even married a man who shared my love of country and desire to make an impact in the world. It was a very exciting time. Of course, I was very concerned about all that was going on back in the United States and the world. The 2008 collapse of the housing market that resulted in a Great Depression for millions of Americans was a great concern. The awareness about climate change, the melting of the ice caps, and the rising temperatures of the seas and air weighed heavily on my mind. But I was hopeful. The election of Barack Obama and his willingness to tackle issues of LGBTQ rights, immigration rights, gun control, universal medical care, and the standing of the United States with fellow countries around the world made me proud and eager to stay connected to my native country. I did watch with great concern and trepidation the rise of the Tea Party, the backlash against Obama, the increased numbers of soldiers dying in Afghanistan and Iraq, the terrible plight of the Dreamers, and the beginning of the Syrian civil war. Then came 2016 and the start of the so-called Trumpian era. I watched with fear and loathing the many attempts and successes of the Trump regime to set the country and the world back. The construction of the huge steel wall along the U.S.-Mexican border, even diverting funds for essential government projects to ensure this ridiculous goal was a real concern to me. What a waste of time, money, and human dignity. I watched the institution of the Muslim ban, keeping out of the country so many worthy individuals just because they followed a different religion. I watched the utter disregard for the scourge of COVID that has left over 240 million Americans dead and millions of people, 240,000 Americans dead and millions of Americans mourning them and fearing for their own lives. I watched the utter disregard to many American and international institutions, like the pulling out of support for the Paris Climate Accord, the World Health Organization, like attempting to dismantle the Environmental Protection Agency and cut regulatory control on the measures put into place to control pollution, only to support the big businesses that have utter disregard for these measures. I watched the deliberate attempt to increase the feelings of white supremacy and the increase of racial bias across the country. I watched the courting of autocratic leaders from many countries like the Philippines, North Korea, Russia, Turkey, ensuring greater instability and fear in the world. I watched the attempt to punish blue states and divert badly needed funds from them to try to reward the red states that supported him. This was certainly not a Democratic leader who I could support, or anyone who I thought would be good for the American people. I'm a first-generation American, the daughter of immigrants from the Middle East, from Iran and Turkey. I learned as a young child how important it was to be an American, and how grateful I should be that I was able to be raised in the land of opportunity. My parents benefited from all that America had to offer. They both had only elementary educations, but gained a footing in the middle class due to hard work, good planning, and taking advantage of every opportunity given them. They pushed forward and really did not pay much heed to those who were struggling to keep up. Lucky for me, I was surrounded by very socially conscious and concerned citizens. They really paid attention to the rights accorded them in the Bill of Rights and were grateful that they did not have to suffer the scourges going on in Europe at the time of their arrival. They were quite aware of the fifth and sixth principles of Unitarian congregations. The fifth, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process in society at large. So lofty a goal and so hard to maintain on a regular basis. We are all aware of the many castes in our society, from the lowly, poor, economically deprived, racially segregated, who have remained at the bottom of the rungs of the economic ladder after hundreds of years in the society, to the limited number of elites who have wanted for nothing, who wear artificial armor to ward themselves against the ills of society and the world. It is heartwarming that we now have a president and vice president-elect who appreciate this principle and will work toward instituting it into our society. Unlike the last 4 years of the Trumpian era, we can look forward to a return to seeing democracy as a right for all of us, not just the small portion of the population that had already had it going for them all this time. Listen to the words of Joe Biden on Wednesday, November 8th, when he talked about wanting to be the president of all the people of the United States. Not the president of the red states, not the president of the blue states, but the president of all Americans. I was most impressed with what he had to say 3 days before the final count was in and he became president-elect. Please listen.
A brief statement, and I'm sure we'll have more to say later, and either tonight or tomorrow. But let me begin by thanking the press for being here and thanking everyone else. My fellow Americans, yesterday once again proved that democracy is the heartbeat of this nation, just as it has been the heartbeat of this nation for 2 centuries. And even in the face of a pandemic, more Americans voted this election than ever before in American history. Over 150 million people cast their votes. I think that's just extraordinary. And if we had any doubts, we shouldn't have any longer about a government of, by, and for the people. It's very much alive in America. Here, the people rule. Power can't be taken or asserted. It flows from the people, and it's their will that determines who will be the President of the United States, and their will alone. And now, after a long night of counting, it's clear that we're winning enough states to reach 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency. I'm not here to declare that we've won, but I am here to report that when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners. With all the votes counted, we have won Wisconsin by 20,000 votes, virtually the same margin that President Trump won that state 4 years ago. In Michigan, we lead by over 35,000 votes, and it's growing. A substantially bigger margin than President Trump won Michigan in 2016. Michigan will complete its vote soon, maybe as early as today. And I feel very good about Pennsylvania. Virtually all the remaining ballots to be counted were cast by mail. And we've been winning 78% of the votes by mail in Pennsylvania. We've flipped Arizona and the 2nd District of Nebraska. Of special significance to me is that we've won with the majority of the American people. And every indication is that that majority will grow. We have a popular vote lead of nearly 3 million votes, and every indication is that will grow as well. Indeed, Senator Harris and I are on track to win more votes than any ticket in the history of this country that ever won the presidency and vice presidency. Over 70 million votes. I'm very proud of our campaign. Only 3 presidential campaigns in the past have defeated an incumbent president. When it's finished, God willing, we'll be the 4th. This is a major achievement. This is a major achievement. And it's been a long and difficult campaign, but it's been a more difficult time for our country, a hard time. We've had hard campaigns before. We've faced hard times before. So once this election is finalized and behind us, it'll be time for us to do what we've always done as Americans, to put the harsh rhetoric of the campaign behind us, to lower the temperature, to see each other again, to listen to one another, to hear each other again, and respect and care for one another, to unite, to heal, to come together as a nation. I know this won't be easy. I'm not naive. Neither of us are. I know how deep and hard the opposing views are in our country on so many things. But I also know this as well. To make progress, we have to stop treating our opponents as enemies. We are not enemies. What brings us together as Americans is so much stronger than anything that can tear us apart. So let me be clear. We are campaigning as a Democrat, but I will govern as an American president. The presidency itself is not a partisan institution. It's the one office in this nation that represents everyone. And it demands a duty of care for all Americans. And that is precisely what I will do. I will work as hard for those who didn't vote for me as I will for those who did vote for me. Now, every vote must be counted. No one's going to take our democracy away from us. Not now, not ever. America's come too far. America's fought too many battles. America's endured too much to ever let that happen. We, the people, will not be silenced. We, the people, will not be bullied. We, the people, will not surrender. My friends, I'm confident we'll emerge victorious. But this will not be my victory alone or our victory alone. It'll be a victory for the American people, for our democracy, for America. And there will be no blue states and red states when we win, just the United States of America. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
And I'm looking to 4 years of some real opportunities. I believe we're on a new path. I believe we will have the best members in the new cabinet of President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. People who have interest of the nation in their minds, not the interests of their own pocketbooks or their own reputations. I'd like to see people like Elizabeth Warren, Julian Castro, Pete Buttigieg, Cory Booker, Bernie Sanders, Stacey Abrams, take key cabinet positions to help guide Biden to lead the world. I have hope. I hope this is not going to be an easy fix. Trump did a great deal of damage to our country in the past 4 years, but I do believe we are now have the opportunity to right many of the wrongs he instilled in our population. Let us raise a glass to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and be behind them from the start. Let's set our petty differences aside and concentrate on what is best for our country. Joe, Kamala, and we, the people of the United States, deserve no less. Muchas gracias.